guys, welcome back to the video. In this video, we're going to be talking more about Robert Pattinson's The Batman. Now, I know it has been a while since I've made a Batman video. I haven't made a full theory breakdown video since the newest trailer, so this video might be a bit of a longer one. But yeah, as usual, we're going to be going through the r/TheBatmanFilm subreddit. Again, shout out to this subreddit because I love the content that this subreddit has. I think it's the best The Batman subreddit there is. So if you haven't already checked it out, make sure to do so. But again, in this video, we're basically going to be going through a bunch of posts on the subreddit. I'm going to be giving my thoughts on this as well as talking about some new news that we have for the movie. Before we get into it, if you guys are new in here and you do enjoy these Batman videos and or all the other movie reviews, trailer reactions, all the other content that I make on this channel, make sure that subscribe button and turn notifications on so you don't miss any time of a new video or go live. Both that we're seeing more time. Let's get into it. So this first post right here on r/TheBatmanFilm subreddit says, will Alfred Pennyworth die in The Batman? There's a fan theory going around that the Riddler will kill Alfred or Alfred will die in the film since we haven't seen a lot of footage or BTS footage with him. What do you think? Do you think he will die? I don't think Alfred will die, especially because we already know this is a trilogy. So I think the fact that Alfred's already an integral part of Batman and also the fact that this Batman is so young and is going to need a lot of mentorship, I don't think there's going to be anyone else that can really technically replace Alfred. I also feel like Alfred's going to have more of a hands-on thing going on. So he might die in the final movie as some sort of like motivating factor for the Batman, but I do not think he would die in this first movie, especially since we know we're getting a trilogy. Also, obviously, like Alfred, like I said before, is just such an integral part of Batman's story. And the fact that he's so young, the fact that he needs someone with him on his side that knows who Bruce Wayne is, knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman, knows that Bruce Wayne isn't everything that everyone in the public thinks that he is. Alfred's the only one that can really help him on the inside. So I think that whole factor is still going to be at play in a big role in this. Also, if we get some like bigger bad, maybe like the Court of Owls or something like that in the later movies, and we have something just like a massive threat like that that really truly does tie into the background of Batman and specifically his parents and how Alfred has been around his parents, and they can make it to where maybe Alfred knew all of this, maybe Alfred didn't know all of this, and the fact that he knew this, maybe Bruce would leave Alfred for a little time, maybe that would influence it, or at the same time it could draw them closer together if Alfred didn't know about the whole like Court of Owls or his parents being bad people. If Alfred didn't know about that stuff, then it could draw them even closer because of the connection that they have through his parents. Nevertheless, I do think it will be interesting if Alfred died. I don't think it would be the best thing to do though, especially, I mean, honestly, just the main factor is that he's such an integral part of Batman, and especially with this Batman being so young, I think he has to be here. So this guy right here said that I can totally see it. IDK, how many people on here have read or are reading Batman the Imposter, but it's being written by the same guy who wrote the new film. In the newest issue, we saw that he doesn't hold a lot of reverence for Alfred the character, and I could see him killing the dude off to set Bruce onto a dark path. I think this would be fairly interesting. I don't know how much this would translate to an on-screen thing, especially because number one, you can sell a lot of Alfred toys, but also number two, I just feel like with this Batman being so young, I think it requires a mentor figure in some capacity, and from what we know, there's no other figure like this yet, so I think that this character would be super important to have here, at least for this first movie. Again, I do think that Alfred could potentially get killed off in a future movie, maybe like movie number 2, probably movie number 3 if they're going to kill him off at all, and that could be kind of another setting off factor for Batman, but nevertheless, I don't think he's going to die in this one. This next post says, idea for TwoFace. Not sure if this has been explored in the comics before, but I've also had a unique vision for the TwoFace that I think would be cool in Matt Reeves' version of Gotham. Imagine a Harvey Dent who always does the right thing, but is obsessed with his image as Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. All the while, he's suppressing the darkness inside that will eventually manifest as his Two-Face alter ego. By day, he'd be a darling of the Gotham media and celebrated for his crusade against the crime families in the first film, but at night, he carries out his own brand of brutal justice, in the same vein as Tyler Durden and Jekyll and Hyde, with a mask that covers up half of his face. IDK, just a thought. I think this is a pretty good idea, especially with this grounded lore that Matt Reeves is going for. My only issue with this, and we'll be talking about this later in this video, is that I don't know how fantastical they're going to go with this, and I think that this would be a good idea if they're going to keep it 100% grounded the whole time. What I mean by this is, if we keep it 100% grounded, we're not going to get people like Killer Croc or Mr. Freeze. They're just too fantastical for this grounded side of things, and I think that if we're going to have this idea for Two-Face, the whole trilogy will have to be 110% grounded. This first movie from we know is 110% grounded. That's not a bad thing. But if we do want fantastical elements, which I think is a very key part of Batman's character, then we can't use this idea. But I think this is a good idea that he brought up just in general of this vision of Two-Face and how he's really trying to suppress the darkness inside of him. I think that's actually a really good idea. And nevertheless, with this not being useful in a fantastical Gotham, I don't think Gotham's 100% going to be fantastical because, as I said before, this movie already has a very, very grounded feel just from these first two trailers. And we already know that Matt Reeves is going for a grounded crime family, underground type of thing, especially with we know when we're getting like the GCPD show and the Penguin show, we're going to be exploring these underground lores a lot. So this could work as a subset within these things, but if we're going to make Two-Face a prominent character within this entire Matt Reeves universe, I don't think this will work. I just think it's a little bit too grounded. So this next post is saying possible spin-offs. So they said that, so we're getting a GCPD spin-off that may follow Jim Gordon, but it may not. And we're also getting a Penguin spin-off. So if you were to make a third spin-off for the Batman, who or what would it be personally on? Personally, I would wait until maybe after the third film and start a Batgirl spin-off, so then she appears in the fourth film. Okay, so I think this guy, good idea, Batgirl, I would love this, but I just think he's thinking a little bit too far ahead. If we're doing 3 shows, I don't think it's gonna be like 1 between each movie. I think it might be like 2 between 1 and 2, and then maybe 1 between 2 and 3, just to set up a massive finale. And I also think that the Penguin show and GCPD will 100% be between 1 and 2, because Penguin isn't in this first Batman movie a lot. Colin Farrell himself said that, but I do think he'll be a very, 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 very big part in the second movie, so I think that that show has to be there. Now, the entire comment section and replies on this are very interesting. This first person said Catwoman easily gets the nod. Batgirl is a movie coming, and Nightwing and Red Hood are Titans. Not that I'm against any of these heroes, but if I only get to make one more show, I'm giving it to Catwoman. I would agree with this one, just depending on what happens with Selina Kyle in this movie. Obviously, her character is just gonna have to do some sort of like movement arc type of thing in this movie alone, but I do think it would be interesting to have her own show. But we know that they might be doing spin-off movies in this entire universe of Matt Reeves' Batman. I think that's a pretty interesting idea. Personally, I wish they kind of just stuck to villains in movies, if that makes sense. Kind of like maybe like a Bane solo movie, kind of like what they do with the Joker, just make it super dark and menacing. And obviously rated R won't translate into over a Batman movie, probably not. If we're thinking about what Warner Brothers wants to do they want a rated R Batman movie or do they want a PG-13 Batman movie? Which one will make more money? Which one will be open to more fans? Stuff like that. But if they do a rated R villain movie, they can kind of transfer the villain over. They just make them a little bit less brutal. Nevertheless, going back to Catwoman, I don't think Catwoman needs a whole movie per se, unless it's like a prequel movie, because I feel like after this movie, obviously we don't know what she's gonna do after this movie, but after this movie, she's probably gonna have a very, very, very strong connection with the Batman. So we probably don't want to see her without the Batman. So if it's a prequel show, I really would love that, or a prequel movie or something like that. But if we're talking just shows, I think it would be really interesting if we have an Arkham Asylum show, basically like an anthology series, maybe 6 or 8 episodes, and just going through a bunch of random villains and their backstory. And I think that they could really make it pretty cool. They could also do the same thing with GCPD, where they just do a bunch of anthology series cases, but I think they're gonna really heavily tie that one into the Batman universe. But in the third movie, if they just want to have a bunch of the Rogues Gallery come out, Batman has to fight a bunch of them, or maybe even just have like a series of shots in the movie or like a whole act of the movie where he's just taking down a bunch of different villains, and they want to introduce all of those villains in, say, an Arkham Asylum show ahead of time, I think that would be a pretty interesting concept. All right, so this next post says, can we just let Paul Dano be the villain of this movie? Okay, I apologize if this point has been run to the ground in the past, but after a few months of following this movie's development on Twitter and other subs and YouTube, I'm just tired of all the over-the-top speculation. What if the Court of Owls is in the mastermind that Riddler's trying to take down? What if Paul Dano isn't the real Riddler? What if the Joker's behind all of it? What if? Can we just have a movie where there's a single guy telling riddles and that's it? Seriously, Paul Dano is a fantastic actor and the Riddler is a fun character. We don't need to insert a billion characters into this just because we recognize the names from the comics. Now, I chose this post specifically because I wanted to look at the comments of this, because I think this is very interesting, hearing everyone's different take on it, and everyone agrees to a certain extent, and that's what I kind of enjoy, because I do agree with this as well. But I want to start off with the one point that I do not agree with at all. This guy right here said, it's a side effect of Marvel movies being an endless advertisement for their upcoming movies instead of being well-written standalone stories. Every movie is expected to be part of a larger narrative with a million references and cameos to make up for the inherent homogeneity, I don't know how to pronounce that word, and blandness of the actual plot line. After that, they just complain a lot more, and I agree with the comment in the reply below this. They said, to be honest, I don't even know if it's that. I've been seeing people wanting to be a second Riddler twist for him. Now, this is very interesting to me because personally, you guys know me, I love Marvel. I'm more of a Marvel fan than I am a DC fan. That's very apparent in all my videos, but I don't think this is the case at all. Stories like, for example, like even Shang-Chi, obviously it went from a grounded action movie to a fantastical movie by the end, but it really had no plot connections to the bigger picture, I guess. Same thing with like one of the best solo movies in the MCU, Captain America Winter Soldier. It is not tied to the bigger picture in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, it sets up Captain America Civil War with the Winter Soldier and his whole backstory with Hydra, but it's not truly impacting the movie itself. So this point to me really makes no sense. I don't want to spend too much time on this because I think this is just people complaining about good Marvel movies, but nevertheless, this guy right here said, definitely agree, it ruins the whole vibe of the movie if Riddler isn't the main bad guy. You guys can read the rest of it if you want, but I agree with this guy. I do think that this movie has really built a mystery, thriller, just that whole atmosphere, and I think it's a really good idea if they just keep it being the Riddler. I don't think it's because I don't want them to connect it to some bigger plot, because apparently Batman narrates this movie, and at the end there's like a crazy reveal according to test screeners, and so I don't think that there shouldn't be like a massive thing at the end, like maybe something to hook us for another show or an upcoming movie. Just that's necessary in my opinion, especially when you're trying to build a Batman universe, like a Batverse basically. When you're trying to build that, you have to have hype for upcoming stuff, so it makes sense. At the end of the day though, this movie's storyline specifically, I do want it to be Riddler. I would love to see like a bigger level of things. So like, I don't know much about the Court of Owls. I've heard a lot about them though. So from what I know, they're basically like just a massive group of corrupt people, and they're basically villains, right? And so I think it would be interesting at the end if we have some sort of reveal about them, maybe saying like, okay, we set this up so the Riddler would do this, blah, blah, blah. Like, if they do that in the right way, they would not take away from the Riddler's character. But if they do it in the wrong way, they can basically just take away everything that the movie gave us. So I think that when you're connecting it to the bigger picture, there's a lot you have to worry about, but I think that Matt Reeves can pull it off, especially when it's his idea to do a Batverse and not Warner Brothers. Matt Reeves specifically wanted to do multiple movies. And so I think building a universe off of just Matt Reeves' vision, I think that's gonna like improve this by a mile. Because for example, Man of Steel, right? Zack Snyder signed on to do one Man of Steel movie, not knowing there was gonna be a whole DCEU. If they had set up just a little bit more in that movie, just for a world for us to understand, then maybe the DCEU would be better than it is right now. But Matt Reeves, he's the creator of this movie, and he's the one that's going to be the creator of the entire universe. And so seeing all of that, I think it leads us to have, at least leads me to have a lot of hope for this movie and the universe as a whole, and that they won't overcomplicate this story, this mystery thriller that we have here, because I think that's what makes this movie so exciting for me personally. Okay, so this next post is kind of what I was talking about earlier when we were talking about like the TwoFace idea and how we were talking about like fantastical elements and stuff like that. This person said right here, he titled it, "My opinion on a grounded Batman." He said, "I think this Batman movie should have fantastical elements with a mix of grounded realism. One thing that makes Batman such a badass character is how he can stand toe-to-toe with superpower villains, though just being a guy in a bat suit. We already had a grounded Batman with the Nolan trilogy. Why do we need another one? Batman uses riches, gadgets, and detective skills to keep up with his dangerous villains. Batman is a comic book character, and we need this movie to embrace Batman's fantastical side to show how bad he really is." Okay, so this post, I chose this one specifically because I'm personally conflicted on it. So if you made it this far into the video, let me know in the comments down below, should Matt Reeves' Batman universe be fantastical or grounded? Because I personally think it should be a mix of both. Because for example, maybe this first movie is super grounded, and then we get introduced to maybe something like metahumans or something like that. Something light for the next one. Something like, obviously it's going to be CGI heavy. I think it'll look cool though. Like, we're already in this like level into this Batman thing where it's like, Batman has to be grounded. Batman cannot be doing crazy stuff. And I think that's just because of the Nolan trilogy. For example, in the Nolan trilogy, Batman would literally get shot by like one revolver and be out. Like, he would be like, I'm done with this for a day. We'll come back tomorrow. Like, that's what was happening in the Nolan movies. The Dark Knight's one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, and I'm saying that. I love the Nolan trilogy. It was just too grounded for me. But what does give me hope is that in an interview, Jeffrey Wright confirmed that there's going to be fantastical elements in this Batman universe, and that really gets me excited because I don't think we need another trilogy as grounded as Nolan's, and it feels like we are because of the announcements of the Penguin show, the GCPD show. Obviously, you know, those shows might be able to introduce us to fantastical elements. One example of this is like the GCPD show, when they start at the end of the show maybe starting to arrest metahumans, and they kind of start to get into this realm of, okay, what is happening? What's like maybe some sort of transformation is going on within Gotham. And then in the Penguin show, we can kind of uncover some underground things, maybe fantastical elements happening in the thug world, in the thug underworld, all that kind of stuff. And so we can slowly transition from this first movie that's 100% grounded to a more fantastical side of things with the second and third movie, maybe even a show between the second and third movie. And I think an Arkham Asylum show, that would help with that as well. That's kind of why I mentioned it earlier, is because obviously I picked this out before, so I knew we were going to talk about this. I think an Arkham Asylum show could really help with this and really help with the transition of going from 100% grounded to 75% grounded and 25% fantastical. It doesn't need to be 1,000,000% fantastical, but this guy did make a really good point. If this guy is just, if Batman is just a guy in a suit and he's taking on fantastical creatures, I think that's what makes him so cool. That's what makes him such a cool character. Also, I do think we're going to get hints of fantastical, I guess, or people are going to just call it plot armor, but I think as the universe goes on, we'll see more of the fantastical elements. But like I mentioned before, Nolan's movies, Batman would get capped off by like one revolver shot. But in this movie, we literally saw in the last trailer, Batman was getting lit up with bullets and didn't flinch. We also saw Batman flying in his car like 50 meters above the ground, and then we also saw him just coming out of a pit of fire. It's fantastical to an extent. I don't think in this movie it's necessarily going to be Killer Croc and all those villains, Mr. Freeze. I don't think that's what we're going to get in this movie, but I do think we're still going to get a suspension of disbelief, maybe just preparing us that we're going to have some of these grounded elements, but over time we're going to shift and we're going to make it a little bit more fantastical. So just get ready for that. But here's a final post that we're going to be going over today. It says, seeing how Rob's character name appears here makes me wonder if this will be the first time the Batman is credited as the Batman for a film. So yeah, you guys can see this photo right here. I think this is pretty interesting. I did tweet about this a while ago. This is why I wanted to put it in the video, because I did see it on the subreddit, and I think this is something kind of important, because I think that this puts him as a figure in Gotham, I guess. Maybe I'm just overthinking it, okay? Maybe something that they want to put as like the title of the Batman, and then it's like, we'll call him the Batman, but I think that this means that he is a looked up or looked down upon figure in Gotham. I think that they're going to put him on a pedestal in Gotham, even though obviously Bruce Wayne doesn't feel like he deserves to be put on a pedestal. So I don't know much to say about this, but I just wanted to bring it up at the end of this video because I thought it was interesting. Let me know what you guys think of this, because again, this is the first time that a Batman character is credited as the Batman, so I do think this is fairly interesting. But yeah, guys, that's it for this video. If you guys enjoy these Batman videos, make sure that subscribe button and turn notifications on for more Batman videos, as well as just more movie reviews, trailer reactions, stuff like that. I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.